Hello, I am Joseph Rutland, and this is my good friend Michael.
Good.
And you join us
Evening.
today on the JMC Cast. And today we shall be discussing some good old foreign films.
Very tonally discordant
First of all,
ones.
yes, very different. I wasn't expecting what you pulled out, to say the least. So, without a further doubt, how's your week been, Michael?
Hot, and not in like the sense that I enjoy, more in the sort of, I'm gonna say in the sweaty, sticky sense, but that could still be the sense it's enjoyable. But no, it's just, yeah, it's Mediterranean over here. Like I said, it's all right now because it's kind of cooled down a bit, and it's more breezy in the late evening. But in midday, I can't walk on paving stone without scorching my bare feet. Which might be my fault for not wearing shoes, but
You weren't wearing shoes?
No, I out in my back garden on like the patio, not out in the streets. That's a bit dodgy.
I went for a nice hour and a half long walk in the scorching sun. Went down the promenade in my sun hat, had a fabulous time. Yeah, very good in my sandals, not barefoot.
Yeah, sandals.
And
a bit more
I had a
appropriate.
barbecue.
Didn't go particularly well.
And unfortunately, no, during my barbecue, the barbecue died. It kind of self-destructed because we used fireplace charcoal instead of barbecue charcoal, and that caused it to kind of bellow into a giant cloud of smoky death of uncomfortableness that no one was particularly happy with. And it melted all the knobs on the barbecue, so now we don't have a barbecue. Which is a shame, because we only got one round of sausages.
Oof. Bad luck.
I know, it's really a shame. Yeah.
No.
Oh, also, I made a face, well, I'm still making a face, out of latex for a project I'm working on.
Not skin, then.
I don't know where yeah, it's not an actual skin, it's latex skin, using clay. The final version of it will be used on Michael here, but just for now, I don't want Michael to get hurt because he is a very precious boy to me. So, got to test it on myself, and it's going very well. He's not going to get hurt. Hopefully. Yeah. I've given it eyebrows, which didn't turn out too well, but I know what I did wrong. I placed them wrong and used too much pen. But I've got actual material to make them out of that's from a basing set for a World War I thing. It's a bit confusing, but it makes sense if you're the one doing it, that is. Yeah, having a generally good time. How's your lockdown been in general?
Not exactly stimulating. Got a lot of reading done at least.
You've not been stimulated?
Only by myself.
Oh.
Not for lack of trying. I've been reading mainly. Well,
I've got a television in my room now, so I've been watching some television. And I've been watching a lot of classic Doctor Who, but we're not going to go into that because if we get onto Doctor Who, we'll get onto a half an hour long conversation about the Timeless Children, and we really don't need that.
All I'm going to say is that the Haunting of Villa, whatever, and Ascension of the Cybermen were great. And it's only the last episode that blows it. Those first two are really good. It's not though. It is kind of sad that once again the Cybermen don't get to be the main villain in the season finale, and it's the Master instead.
And they're always overshadowed by the Master. Yeah.
Third time this has happened now. It's becoming a weird recurring trope.
I know, it was okay in Doomsday where it was the Daleks they were overshadowed by because they were killing each other, but in Death and Heaven, it's the Master and the Cybermen, and then, it's the Mondasian Cybermen, but they're overshadowed by two Masters. And then there's the Cybermen again, and then the Cybermen just get taken by the Master, and it's like, the Cyber Masters now. It's like,
I'm not gonna lie, having Cybermen in Time Lord style outfits is ridiculous, but it is the kind of sort of excess that the Master would go for. His taste.
I would buy the action figures.
To be fair though, in Darkwater in Darkwater Death and Heaven they were basically just a cannon fodder army for Missy. But in World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls, they were more a sort of separate antagonist force alongside the two incarnations of the Master. But I mean, yeah, World Enough in Time is also like the best sort of Cyberman story of the modern series. So I'm biased.
World Enough in Time was great, and I did really like the Doctor Falls, mainly because John Sim is brilliant, but he's vain, so it can be.
I think it's nice to see him.
Slid.
Yeah, it's nice to see him get to play the Master as he'd wanted to do it, a bit more sort of smooth and sophisticated rather than cackling and deranged.
And an electric skeleton.
Look, End of Time Part 1 did many weird things that I'd rather not think about. It just becomes.
What I've recently
Sorry,
watched. Have you seen Life on Mars?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it. It's John Sim, isn't it? It's detective
Yeah,
show?
John Sim. It is quite possibly the best cop show I've ever seen. The acting is molto bene. I love it. It is sexy acting, and not in a sexual way, just in a raw. Okay,
Sorry.
I'm just going to stop talking.
Just give me 1 moment. I've got to get a phone call, so I'll be a minute.
Life on Mars is a very good show featuring Philip Glenister and John Sim. It is set in the 70s, and oh my god, is it good. It just messes with your mind. It's brilliant, absolutely spectacular drama, keeps you on the edge of your seat every step of the way. White dog poo all over the ground isn't the best, but it's historically accurate.
Alright, sorry about that.
Ah, Michael.
Yes, it's me.
You're back. Do you read me?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm here. I would certainly hope so. Well, we've lost the thread now.
Shall we go on to one of our films?
Yes, I think that's a very good idea.
So, this podcast we will be reviewing 2 films that are made in foreign countries. The film that I've put forth is The Lift Boy, an Indian film, and the film that Michael has put forth is Ran, which is Japanese King Lear.
Yeah, French.
Now, I wasn't
French-Japanese production, I believe.
A French-Japanese.
Yeah, Franco-Japanese. Filmed in Japan, but I think it was funded by a French studio.
The more you know. I wasn't expecting you to pull out something like that the first time round. Because, in comparison, my rather twee coming-of-age fairy tale story about a boy who works in a lift, I mean, it's good in its own right, but it doesn't stand up to Shakespeare.
It's not quite the same as, an epic sort of tale of bloodshed and chaos in feudal Japan.
No. It has its own merits, though. So what shall we talk about first? I've got some notes on Ran.
I don't mind. You could flip a coin or something, hell.
I don't have any coins. Do you have any coins? I'm poor.
Yes, I do actually. Give me 1 second.
And this is the bit, viewers, where Michael flips a coin. I don't know if this will become a recurring thing or not. I don't really know.
Alright, I've got a pound coin.
Ah, you're back. Flip it. Heads Ran, tails the Lift Boy.
Tails.
The Lift Boy is coming first.
Ah, yes.
Ooh, yeah.
Slightly.
So, what did you think while watching The Lift Boy? What were the impressions that the film gave you?
Are we going in full spoilers from the start, or are we gonna go non-spoiler then spoiler?
I think we've got to give a spoiler warning here. So, if you've not seen it yet, then skip ahead to our Ran review.
Yeah, we'll put.
Oh, sorry, my fish just did a weird thing. But yeah, spoilers.
If we put a timestamp in the description, then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I saw the old lady D'Souza dying from about, I'd say, half an hour into the movie, but at the same time,
it was very predictable.
Yeah, at the same time, I was still surprised when it did happen. So I guess I got to give him credit for that. I mean,
it's definitely a film where you can guess what beats it's trying to do and what beats it's going to do.
It very much seems to follow the sort of standard structure of a coming-of-age story. I did still enjoy it, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like, it was a, sort of... I don't know, like a nice movie in a sense that you can just sit back and watch, and even though you know what's going to happen, it's still kind of, sort of feel good, I guess would be the word.
Yeah. I was quite confused on what the message was going to be, because at first, when he was being rude to that lady in the lift, where the hot girl comes in and he's like, hey, and then the other lady comes in and then he's just rude to her, I thought one of the big messages was going to be him learning to be nice to people. But the only thing he learnt was architecture.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because they did subvert where you think it's going to go for like a or he's going to abandon the sort of vocation for his true calling. But then, no, he actually just sticks to the degree he didn't want to do and works hard and passes, which is a different message to what you normally get with these movies, if not necessarily a bad one, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it is a culturally different movie.
Yeah, that's true.
And it definitely shows.
I mean, they lampshade that, don't they? It's, that he gets a choice, doctor or engineer. That's it, those are the options.
Yeah. What do you think of the friend, the rather large chap?
I liked him, actually. I thought he was a sort of fun character to just sort of show up for like a couple of scenes as a supporting cast member.
I liked him. I thought some of his dialogue was a bit odd. Like, he brings his friend to dinner to try and give him some pills he ordered from a porn site.
Yeah, he tries to give him what appear to be dick pills that he ordered on the internet.
I don't know about you, but if you invited me to a some sort of fancy steakhouse and tried to give me some dick pills, I'd probably be a bit offended.
It's gonna be a bit weird, that's sure. I did like that scene just because.
Yeah.
I'm always a fan of scenes of two characters talking whilst eating, across the table. Sure why. Though I did find amusing that I could. There's that scene and there's one other scene, just right near the end of the movie. It's the one where he's talking to his dad in the hospital stairwell. And in both of those scenes, you could clearly see the moment where they cut to a different take, which I assume was because they hadn't had a chance to, do a pickup shot for that or whatever. But it's mildly amusing, I thought, to be able to spot that.
I thought the whole fairy tale thing it was going for was a bit on the nose, because obviously he's the prince, the main guy, and then there's the literal fairy godmother who has been funding his entire life this whole time.
Yeah.
And in the end, he ends up with a girl whose name is literally Princess, which I think is the most on-the-nose bit in the whole movie.
I wasn't clear whether it was a nickname or an actual name, but...
I thought it's just kind of like if you had a villain in a film and the villain's name was Villain, because that is their job in the narrative. That's just kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
It
depends really, because it depends on, I guess, the reasons why you're sort of intentionally lampshading that for the narrative. But
what do you think of the acting?
It was all pretty decent, I would have said.
I thought the main guy's acting was off in a few scenes where it was and I kind of questioned it a bit, but overall I thought he was pretty good.
I mean, I'm not qualified to judge this thing, but the main cast were all, at least fine. Mostly pretty good, I would have said.
One bit that I noticed that kind of confused me at first was when he was going out, well, not going out, but when he was out talking with the older woman, who he's only known for 3 days. When one of the first things he asks her is, how did your husband die? And I just thought, you've only known this woman for 3 days, and she's your boss. Isn't that a bit soon? And yeah, do you get where I'm coming from?
It's maybe it's a cultural difference, but that does seem like a very forward question to ask somebody. It's a private matter, but
I thought the bit at the end where the large friend pays for the old woman's funeral was very touching.
Yeah, that was a nice sort of like setup and payoff with him having all that money he's wanting to spend, and then he ends up using it for that. I mean, I certainly like the ending where you've got like, you know, sort of all the sort of, you know, minor and side characters that we've seen throughout showing up in the sort of the end part.
Getting their own classes to teach. And the ending, it was bittersweet. It was sad because the woman died, but it was like seeing that painting of him jolly opening the lift. It was just, it made me feel nice and warm inside.
Well, like the whole movie, it was nice, feel good sort of. Yeah, that's, you know, he made it in the end, I guess. It's obviously what we wanted him to do.
Yeah.
He's a likable protagonist.
It's a shame that we never actually got to see the. It would have been nice if she'd have lived like a little bit longer to have like the payoff of the pizza thing, because it did kind of feel like that whole thing of I've just come out of heart surgery. Oh no, where's Harry Styles? Who do you think gave you the heart? That was the kind of vibes at the end was giving me.
Okay, I didn't need to be reminded of those memes. I understand what you mean. I'm torn on that, because on the one side the death of her felt very abrupt, but on the other side that is kind of what it's like when people die unexpectedly. I thought they handled that quite well, where it's just sort of, you know, that denial and confusion and bargaining and then acceptance. Obviously, I think I got the order of the stages of grief wrong there, but you get the idea. I thought it was quite realistic in the way they depicted it. I liked that.
I liked it too. I liked how in the end he got her old apartment, but there was a bit at the end, and I suppose it was supposed to be heartwarming, but with the lollipop in the lift, and the reason why she's paying for his like upbringing is because he tried to give her a lollipop that he'd already like half eaten. And I get that it's cute, but at the same time,
not hygienic.
That's got to have some proper germs on it. This is set in a place where they need a lift person to press the lift button so germs don't spread. And he's giving her a lollipop out of his own mouth. I mean, it's lovely and it's touching, but it's also a bit ew.
Yeah, it's a small child trying to be sort of helpful and friendly, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing a small kid would do, I think.
An emotional beat. Are we going to rate this?
Oof, in a scoring system.
Scoring system. I don't know how I'd rate this.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because on, I guess, objective levels, you know, it's got a fair few flaws, but I still enjoyed it. So I mean, it felt like the script could do with just a couple more redrafts to add some meat to it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good film. It's just it's not my general genre.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether I could say it was good, but I could say that it was nice to watch, you know? Yeah.
What would you rate it then?
We do an out of 10, out of 5?
I don't know, we can do out of 20, we can do out of 50 if you really want to, but it's up to you, man.
I mean, I don't know, I'd go like a 5 out of 10, if 5 being an average.
5 out of 10. I'd give a 5.75. 5 3/4 to the lift boy.
Slightly above, but not quite 6.
No, not quite. It doesn't hit that 6 level. Right, shall we go on to Ran now? I have made quite a few notes for Ran.
Ooh.
Do you want to introduce the film?
Alright, yeah, so this is one of Akira Kurosawa's last movies, and it's one of the only ones he directed in colour. I think he did about 4 that were in colour, and this is one of them. I believe he was actually going blind at this point, and I might be wrong with this, but I think he actually painted the storyboards like in watercolor, and it's amazing as well because for a director who works so little in colour, his understanding and use of colour really shows here. But it's about set in feudal Japan, about a samurai warlord who tries to cede power to the eldest of his 3 sons, but the greed and hunger for power and political infighting takes over, and everything collapses into a chaos and violence, basically.
I've actually researched
Are we going to go full spoilers?
A bit. Yeah, let's go full spoilers.
Good.
I've researched it a bit, and it's not just King Lear. It's a mixture between King Lear and an old Japanese like folktale kind of thing about an emperor who split it between his 3 sons. But in that, the sons all behaved well. So he was kind of like, it was more he was putting a King Lear twist on that story.
If I recall, I believe what it was he'd obviously knew that story, and he basically wondered, well, what would have happened if the 3 sons hadn't been wise, but had been selfish and greedy. And then I think as he started writing it, he saw the similarities to King Lear, so then he incorporated elements of that. There's a bit of a Macbeth thing going on as well with Lady Kaida.
I felt that. On my notes for Lady Kaida, what was it? I wrote down, oh yes, the wife is a devious bitch.
Yeah, all you need to say for that is, this bitch be crazy. I think...
Although she has a fascinating fashion sense. I like the eyebrows they have where they're at the top of the forehead.
Yeah, it's very distinct. I think it's...
And...
Oh, go on.
Well, did you notice the little platforms they were sitting on?
Oh, yeah, the mats and the like.
Like, when I was watching that, the only thing I could think of was God Emperor of Dune and Leto with his little cart. And those little things that they were sitting on, them with wheels is basically what I imagined that Leto was sitting on through that book.
I see. I pictured it completely differently, but
how did you picture it?
I imagined it to be something like, you know, in Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's like throne dais that he sits on. I
think so.
I imagined it to look something like that, but I actually imagined it hovering through like suspensors rather than moving wheeled. But something of that sort of size and scale. I can't remember how big Leto's supposed to be.
They're gonna make him a thick boy if they get round to making God Emperor of Dune. Thick as a big, thick sausage.
But anyway, back to Ran.
Yeah. The film begins with, and I counted this, 105 seconds of people on horses standing still and looking moody.
Well, it's the credits rolling, isn't it? But yeah, it's a very. I feel like that kind of establishes it though, doesn't it? Because it is quite a slow, contemplative film in terms of its pace.
Yeah, and then they have an effect with the boar, and I don't know about you, but it kind of looked like you know when I did Tons of the Cybermen, where they've got the same guy running across the camera. It kind of looked like that with the boar, and I thought they were trying to have like multiple boars, but just having the boar run past the camera a bunch of times, and it just kind of left me scratching my head a bit.
It was only supposed to be one, I think, wasn't it? And it's killed by Editora.
Emperor Dude. I was extremely impressed by the set design. Like, it was absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous. It was sexy sets. I loved them. The beginning where they've got like the little tent in the hills, that was beautiful. Although the colour scheme, it kind of reminded me of ANCAP's, the yellow and black.
It's black and gold, isn't it? But yeah, it's got a weird
black and gold,
association.
yeah. So that's what it reminisced me of, and I entertained myself a bit thinking that if ANCAPs ever get into power, they'll just become feudal Japan.
To be fair,
which I suppose
society as they envision it would be basically feudalistic. So
it would be feudalistic. So who knows? This could be Japan's Mad Max.
I do with that opening scene as well. Though it's again they immediately establish the like color associations with the 3 sons. You know, the eldest is yellow, the middle is red, and the youngest, Saburo, is blue. and then that sticks throughout the rest of the movie, and it also appears with each of their like armies, all flying the red or the yellow or the blue banners. So you can easily tell who's on what side. I thought it was a nice touch.
Although, because of how vibrant the costumes are, it kind of reminded me of Power Rangers.
That's also Japanese.
Yeah. Maybe because, of course, they would have actually dressed like that back in the day. Maybe
I seen they're all accurate. Yeah.
Maybe it's what inspired the Power Rangers later on with their various different
the Power Rangers
colours.
Costumes definitely have a bit of a samurai feel to my memory. Some of the
especially like the later Power Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, the colour vibrancy
Power Rangers
is there throughout though, because the blood, especially, is bright red.
Yeah, I noticed the blood. I loved that. It contrasts beautifully, the blood. I'm absolutely in love with it. It's
especially
like
when the
such
scene,
a rich colour.
Yeah, it really stands out, especially the scene right towards the end when I can't remember the name now. The general kills Lady Kaida, and it sort of splatters in this clean arc across the
yeah,
white
I love
wall.
that. Have you seen the behind the scenes thing of when they were directing it?
No.
The scene of him killing Lady Kaida. It's quite interesting with the blood splatter, because like it took multiple takes, and think about like how difficult it must have been to like clean the blood off the wall. Of
they've got to set it up all
blood.
again every time. It's like there's a bit in, I think it's Yojimbo, where a character, there's like a samurai duel, and a character gets it's like one of the samurai duels where it's like over in basically 2 hits, and a character gets cut open and like blood sprays out. But apparently what happened was they got it malfunctioned, so that they got way more fake blood than they thought they would, but they decided to keep it for the final cut of the movie because the actors' look of genuine surprise fit perfectly with like the character's reaction. Yeah, I love the
kind of like in RoboCop, where there's a guy being shot by a robot, and I think it was intentional, but I'm not sure. But they put twice the amount of squibs in the guy than they were supposed to. And so instead of having like the amount of blood coming out of him that you'd think there would be, like he's just like blood everywhere, and
it's just insane.
Beautiful. It's gorgeous.
I found it really weird the fact there was a lot of RoboCop merchandise at the time that was like marketed at kids, when the movie itself
despite RoboCop is
really
definitely
violent.
not a kids' film.
One of the things I did love. Sorry, go on.
One thing that had me guessing throughout the movie, and I don't think it was supposed to, but early on, the king just kind of flops over, and the sons say that occasionally when he gets insulted, he pretends to be asleep. And that made me, for like half the time he was mad, I thought he was just pretending to be mad because like someone had offended him. Because it's set up early on that he does weird stuff when people offend him, like pretend to be asleep to get them all to go away.
I read that as I think, isn't it how it's shown is he falls, he's got his head like rested over, and then after everybody leaves, the like bow he was holding actually falls out his hand. So to me, I read that scene as like he isn't pretending to fall asleep. He has actually just drifted off because he's getting old and going a bit senile. But they've mistook it as just an act when he is actually falling asleep. I mean, it's always a bit sort of with Hidetora. It's certainly throughout the movie, I do feel kind of conflicted because on the one hand, I gotta feel bad for him as everything he's built and worked for his whole life falls apart in front of his own eyes. But on the other hand, it's all the consequences of his own actions. It was his decision to abdicate
power. Like murdering
power.
Lady Macbeth's mum and father.
Yeah, like he it was his actions towards her family that led to her trying to tear apart the Ichimonji clan in the first place. We see the castle that he burned down and the boy that he had blinded. It's very much, and of course all of the chaos happens because he refuses to listen to the advice of his youngest son, who is the only one who's actually honest with him and telling him it's a stupid idea. So he very much does reap what he sows, but I still feel bad for him in the end because he really just does not have a good time.
He's getting a hard time.
He ends up dead.
He ends up dead with his son on top of his son, who's also dead.
After his side has won, the battle's over, and then his last and favourite son, the only one who had proved to be worthy of him as a successor, is killed in front of him. It's absolutely tragic.
It's heartbreaking. And he's like, "Oh, son, I must tell you many glorious tales when we get home." And then, yeah, poor guy.
You feel bad for his fool as well.
Well, I was about to bring up the fool. I didn't like the fool. I couldn't stand the fool.
See, I liked him because he's one of the only people who actually be honest, and he was pretty much him and the other guy, the advisor who got exiled. Yeah, they were basically and I think Saburo, basically the only people who were genuinely loyal to Hidetora and actually stuck by his side when everything went to shit. I mean, he could be kind of annoying, but I don't know. I enjoyed watching him for what it was worth.
I felt like the way to describe the fool is he was necessary. And
you couldn't have it without him,
because like
could you?
it's basing it off of Shakespeare, and you can't have a Shakespeare without a fool.
Well, the fool character plays a big part in King Lear, doesn't he? For the same purpose, because he's one of the only advisors who actually speaks honestly and tells it as it is.
If I'm honest, I've never actually seen King Lear.
I'm not too familiar with it myself. I only know like the basic premise.
Because all my family have seen King Lear like 1 billion times. So whenever I ask them, can we go and see King Lear? They're like, oh no, we've seen it 1 billion times. So I've not seen it once.
You've missed out. I will say, I feel like we have to talk about the battle scenes.
Oh, the battle scenes were beautiful. Like, and especially the one with the burning castle, and it's like, did they actually build a castle and burn it, or was it like a model, or how did they do that?
I don't know, but I want to say that they did actually build it and burn it down. I might be wrong. If it was a model, you can't tell that it's a model though, so they clearly did a good job in that case. I feel like, honestly, that whole sequence is pretty much the peak of the movie. Like it's. Yeah,
I thought that you could have ended the movie there with him.
Yeah.
Like where he's about to kill himself, and then cut to black, and that could have been the ending.
The visuals and the symbolism and the sound design, and when he is just when it's the music is playing and the actual fighting is, we barely hear it. But then when the eldest son gets shot and in the back, like the music just like immediately cuts out and the normal sound of battle comes in like full force. I thought that was really, really good sound design. Yeah.
One thing that caught me off guard, and I know it's stupid, but I forgot seppuku was a thing. And then I was just happily watching it, and then those two women just stabbed themselves in the stomach. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah,
what's going on? Because I forgot that they used to do that.
Better to die at your own hand than be captured. It's dishonourable.
And at the same time, when the Emperor decided not to kill himself and he was going towards the samurai outfit, I just thought, okay, so he's not going to kill himself, he's going to climb into the samurai outfit and he's going to kick some ass.
He's going to suit up.
But then he didn't.
He doesn't even get a chance
to kick ass.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to have like some sort of cool anime suit-up Sailor Moon thing and kill his son or whatever, but no, he just kind of...
It's almost the opposite, isn't it? Because he strides out and his sword breaks with like the first hit, which I thought was clever sort of symbolism, because how powerless he is now. But yeah, and then he just walks off and the two armies just split in front of him and let him leave, which I think... Because
he is a dishonourable disgrace, one might say.
I mean, the thing is, you can interpret it multiple ways, because I feel like, for me, even with everything that's happened, and even with the fact that his sons have de facto taken power, he is still the great lord of their clan. and the soldiers still recognize and respect him. So that's why they're reluctant to attack. And because the generals decide not to have him killed, because it's a bit dodgy, they do just let him go out and disappear into the wilderness.
I saw it as, oh, look at him, he is pathetic. Let him live with his shame, kind of thing.
He could interpret it either way. Just kind of part of the quality.
Part of the experience, yeah.
Yeah, and having him.
Do you know if the haircuts they had were bald caps, or did they actually have their hair like that?
I'm not sure. I'd be inclined to say. I don't know. Would it be
Because
their
I
actual
think
hair?
it might have been bald caps,
It might have been
because
bald caps.
I could have sworn in some scenes I could see their hairlines underneath their skin.
Yeah, that sounds slightly familiar. Also, I forgot how. So I've watched this film before a year or two ago, and rewatching it, one thing I had kind of forgotten. Well, I had sort of remembered how like the very like end with the final shot, where how sort of sad it is, because you've got the blind guy who is standing alone,
Waiting for his sister to come back.
not knowing that she's dead. And then he
drops the Buddha thing that she'd given him, the last gift.
Yeah.
The only thing left of his sister, except her severed head, that someone's kicking around a house somewhere.
Just to diverge, I love that scene where the general delivers the statue head, and
and he's and then gives us a nice little thing about the mythology of foxes.
He acts completely straight-faced while also giving a very clear warning about how dangerous Lady Kaida is and how she's a deceptive manipulator that can't be trusted. I love that scene.
I would be surprised if there's nothing like that in any Shakespeare, because that is absolutely script writing gold.
Yeah, it has a bit of a Shakespeare vibe, the way it's done with here. Completely serious, but very tongue-in-cheek, the way he's doing it. Yeah, I love that final thing, the scene especially. I mean, obviously you've got the last shot is a blind man standing on a burnt castle in the middle of a desolate wasteland, which is dark. But I think as well the whole thing of the Buddha scroll being lost into the darkness is kind of symbolic as well, because there's that
how they've lost their hope.
There's that whole recurring theme of losing hope in religion. There's a lot of characters who wonder why the gods or benevolent spirits would allow all this to happen. So the idea of losing faith seems to be a sort of recurring theme. And of course, the character who is most faithful, who's Lady Sue, ends up dead and decapitated. Because she's
in a ditch,
too pure for this world, really. Poor thing. So I feel.
Yeah.
I wonder if that was.
I feel sorry for Lady Sue because,
She did. Again, pointless suffering of an innocent person because of all the chaos that's going on around her.
Did you watch it in the original 1980 version or in the remastered version?
I have it on DVD. Let me just double check. I want to say it's the original version.
Because I had the original version and I kind of regretted not watching the newer version, because the newer one just looks that much crisper with the colours and stuff. But then again, with the backgrounds and the sky is gorgeous. I've never seen a sky so radiant in my life.
Yeah,
it's each piece of scenery looks like a matte painting.
The sky, the shots to the sky, the scenery and the framing of the landscape looks just amazing, doesn't it? Again,
I really liked the cinematography in the bit where they see all the troops on top of the mountain, and then they just realise, okay, we're fucked.
I love that battle sequence as well, with the sort of showing off a weak leader and how he fails because of his weakness. Saw someone. I think I saw an analysis somewhere that points out that there's a theory that battle is actually kind of an analogy for the atom bomb and stuff, in the sense that the traditional the army that use the traditional cavalry charge tactics get cut down by troops with arquebuses because they've got gunpowder. More advanced technology defeats traditional styles of warfare, which I think is a sort of interesting. If it's, I think it's just an interpretation, but it's one interesting way to look at it.
It's an interesting interpretation. I quite like it. I'm quite happy that they didn't really use any CGI. It was all practical effects, because if this film was made nowadays, all those horses would be CGI, and you don't get the feeling, like the...
Yeah,
I don't know what it is about, but like all the horses, you can tell that they're real horses.
Yeah, I think
nowadays they just CGI all the horses.
If it had been made today, I feel like they would have had an actual, horses and riders and stuntmen, but then they would have bulked it out in like post to expand the army of with extra CGI. So even though the battle feels, because they're just using real horses with real riders, it obviously feels way more real, and it also feels, because it feels naturally smaller scale, it feels more intimate, and the stakes feel higher and more personal, because it's not just faceless armies of thousands of people smashing each other. It's a smaller fighting force of more recognizable individuals, I guess.
I would say that the end fight in this is better than the end fight in Endgame.
I mean, yeah, the end fight in Endgame. Sorry, just give me 1 second.
For everyone listening at home, Endgame was a film made by
the end fight of
Marvel
Endgame
Studios.
is just kind of fails to learn the lesson that I thought they'd learnt by that point, i.e., to make a fight scene visually interesting, make it not grey. Like, especially because, like, Infinity War, the whole fight scene on like Titan with the characters going up against Thanos is visually interesting and distinctive, and then in Endgame it's just like grey landscape.
Endgame gets its. The reason why it was praised was because there's a lot of fan service in there, but save to the casual viewer, it's not really going to have the same impact, because like a dude with an A on his head with a hammer, to some people that's, oh my god, this is so cool, but to some people it's just like, oh, it's just an A dude with a hammer.
I think the thing is, though, it's able to assume familiarity because it is it's not a film on its own, it's a climactic end to a series. But yeah, I mean, compare that to...
It's like a 30 movie series though, and only die-hard fans are going to sit down and watch all of them.
Yeah, I haven't watched all of them.
I haven't watched all of them.
You think I'm going to waste my time watching Thor: The Dark World? God.
Oh god, I watched that. I wouldn't... I'd never again. I think that it's still better than the end fight in Black Panther, and Black Panther itself was a great film with an even better soundtrack. But because the end fight...
Black Panther suffers from an end fight scene that feels really cheap and rushed.
The end fight between the main goodie and the main baddie, it's 100% CGI, and the bodies just sort of don't move in a way that's 100% convincing.
They just don't look right. Like, and the fact that it's Black Panther versus colour-swapped Black Panther is also really annoying as well.
Yeah.
But thinking about the end, we were saying about the Endgame battle scene and comparing it to Ran, because like you said with Endgame, if you're not familiar with the characters, you're probably not going to be really clear what's going on. But with Ran, where you've got something like that shot of like a burning castle with, one old man walking his way between two separate brightly coloured armies, you can almost see a lot just from that image, if you know what I mean? Because it's visual storytelling, which I think Kurosawa is very good at, especially by that point.
I think the best movies with the best fights are ones where you just instantly get the characters, like Mad Max Fury Road. All the car chase fight scenes in that, you know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry,
Bullet
give me a
Farmer,
second.
the man-eater, and Big Dude.
Immortan Joe. I mean, yeah, Mad Max Fury Road is one of the best action movies I've ever seen, and it is in part because of that. It's one of my favourite bits in that is the scene where they introduce Immortan Joe, where he's like being sort of attended to and by his servants,
and he drinks the woman's milk.
It's that one where it's like you see like the sort of worn out, scabby old body as they fit on like this plastic molded armor, and then he walks out to cheering crowds, and it's really well done because you can tell almost everything you need to know about him with barely any dialogue.
Yeah,
I mean, I could talk
the
for
kind of
ages
guy
about
that draws a 6-pack on his belly at the beach, because that's literally what he's doing basically.
It's that he's got like the vac-formed muscle armor covered in like old medals and circuit boards. We could talk for hours about how Fury Road is a brilliant film in terms of stuff like that, but yeah, the ability to tell stories through visuals, which again, I think with Kurosawa as well. There's a really interesting video I watched that was about I can't remember who it was now. I can't remember the YouTuber. It's one of those video essay things. But it's talking about how it might have been lessons from the screenplay, but it's about how he uses movement and how he frames it in his shots. And it's to do with how there's always either things moving in or out, and there's very rarely a truly static shot. And when there is, it's part of the visual impact. It's quite interesting stuff. I mean, he's a great director, so you know.
What do you think the overall message was? I kind of read it as, don't be a dick to your family, just be nice to those around you, and then you're not going to be betrayed by everyone.
War is bad, I say, is a massive one.
War bad.
I guess you reap what you sow.
Don't get children to gouge their own eyes out.
Yeah, you reap what you sow. You know, be careful about your actions because the consequences will pay back to you. And don't disregard people's advice. I think is a very big lesson to learn from here. You know, if Hidetora had just listened to what people told him at the start of the movie, all of it could have been avoided. And of course he didn't, and he regretted it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely sort of deeper themes about, like we said, loss of faith and, you know, the dark
and family and how not to disregard them and to like keep your family close.
You know, what makes a good leader, I feel, is a bit of a recurring theme, because we could see how, you know, the different some of the sons were
with the arrows at the beginning, where the arrows together are strong, but when the arrows are separated, they snap easily.
Yeah. Though I also like the fact that the younger son still manages to snap the 3 arrows combined to prove his point.
The younger son is an absolute chad.
Yeah, he's like the most absolute likable stand-up guy in the movie, and he dies for it.
I know. And of course, the devious bitch is the worst. Like, I don't know, I think the thing that made me most uncomfortable, I mean, it was shown earlier on, because I wrote in my notes that the lack of any sort of intimacy between her and her husband made me feel quite uneasy and uncomfortable when they're just sitting on their little Lato cart talking about how her mother died, and then the other guy's like, yes.
Yeah, that scene especially where when she's talking, she always just looks straight ahead and doesn't even seem to acknowledge
there's no connection, and
there's a real
and then it just makes
coldness to their relationship.
Especially later when she bangs his brother straight after he's dead, when his brother has just taken his armor off.
Yeah, but even with that,
it's like, oh, that's a bit skanky.
Even with that as well, like, she's far more passionate towards him, but she's still openly
using him.
Yeah, she's passionate, but she's openly manipulative. And he is, you know, he doesn't have the spine to stand up to her and tell her no, which is what his general, whose name I can't remember, is probably my favourite character, is trying to tell him and warn him about how dangerous she is and he needs to stop listening to her all the time. Which of course he doesn't, and he ends up getting what he deserves for that.
But poor Lady Sue ends up coming worse.
Yeah, she suffers for it. I think, is it her mother as well, the older lady who's with her, suffers for it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
honestly, Lady Sue deserved better.
Innocent people suffering from the destructive careless actions of others, I feel is a bit of a recurring idea here.
Yeah. I was very impressed with the scene with the blind guy in the house, because like as soon as they went in the house, I was like, oh yeah, he's gonna be blind, because like the way it was kind of laid out, and I thought the makeup on him especially, because they made the rest of him his normal skin color, but then they made his face really pale, and it gave him kind of like a sort of ghost-like thing.
Yeah, I was
to
going to
say
say
he's been like
he looks
forgotten by the rest of the world, and he's like living on the fringes as a ghoul kind of thing.
He's an outcast, isn't he? He does look ghostly and sort of like he's not entirely there. Which I suppose he almost isn't, because he being blinded and traumatized, as I think by the sounds of it. It's not made clear, but it seems like he would only have been a teenager, if not a child, when Hidatora had him blinded. So, he has been like absolutely traumatized by that and the loss of his father and his castle and his home. And it's reduced him to sort of a shadow of his former self, living in the dark.
I mean, with the Emperor, again, this film makes it weirdly, you feel sorry for an utter bastard.
Yeah, that's the thing. You absolutely feel sorry for him, even though you know he kind of deserves it because of all the stuff he's done. I mean, with him as well, the makeup is quite apparent when he's reduced to that a grey, sort of, again, ghostly looking sort of figure, because he's so deathly pale as he's wandering around muttering to himself.
It's like, have you seen that? I've not seen it, but that new Tom Hardy film about that drug dealer, the one with all the cocaine.
Don't think I know the one you're referring to.
Yeah, you know the one I'm talking about, though, the big drug dealer who smuggled stuff into...
Are you thinking of Escobar?
Escobar, yes, Escobar, that's who I'm thinking of. And he plays Escobar in his like final days, where he's got like Alzheimer's and he's shitting himself, and he's just this poor old man, and it shows that even though he did all these terrible things and got all this money, in the end it doesn't really mean anything, because he's still forgot everything and shitting himself to death.
So yeah, again, I suppose same kind of thing happens to Hidatora, doesn't it? He spends all his life waging war and conquering land and accruing money and power, and in the end he's a crazy old man wandering around a wasteland
and jumping off cliffs.
I did like that moment where he takes the sarcastic comment literally and actually jumps. It's one of the sort of few sort of amusing bits which are nicely done, I found.
I was rather surprised when he saved the fool in the beginning, because I was expecting the fool to just be struck down, but then he shoots his son's guard.
Yeah, I thought...
But if you think about it, the reason why he was expelled from his son's palace, or at least the official reason, was because his men, led by the fool, were being too rowdy. So could this whole thing have been avoided if he'd have just let the guard kill the fool?
Well, that's a good question. Well, it's as well because the fool is... The song the fool is getting him to sing is subtly mocking the eldest son for being indecisive and inconsistent. And that's what riles him up, and he takes it as an insult, and it's why he tries to kick them out of the castle. Also, I think it's interesting as well that bit where the two baggage trains get in the way of each other is actually the introduction to Lady Kaida, and the first thing we see her do is being impatient and demanding. So it's a nice... Which
really sums up her character.
It's a nice... The film does a good job in establishing them all. I think that's a really good example of you immediately kind of know what she's about from that first scene we see of her. But even then, even though she is a terrible person who brings, untold sort of suffering and pain to many, many people, again, you can understand why she does it, of course, because of all the loss she's suffered.
Parents being murdered in front of her.
So it makes perfect sense that she would seek bloody revenge against the Ichimonji. And of course, she wins.
It gives you a moral question of who should I be rooting for? because they're all shitty people.
They're all kind of bad people, and the only ones that aren't bad people are dead by the end. But yeah, she does win because the Ichimonji, it seems, are wiped out. You know, the father's dead, the 3 sons are dead. There aren't any other family members we're told about. So, you know, that's it. Blank slate.
With the colour coordination in the fight scenes, the fight scene where there's the yellows and the reds in the castle, and then the castle burns down, I was quite confused, because I hadn't yet gotten the thing of the brother in yellow has the yellow army, the brother in red has the red army, and the brother in blue has the blue army. And the yellows were fighting the reds. And I was like, so are one of them on the side of the Emperor? And that was quite confusing because, like, the yellows and reds were wiping each other out. So I thought, well, this is the Emperor being protected. I don't think they really made that clear enough.
Yeah, it might be intentional, that, because it is a chaotic battlefield, isn't it?
And then I was also quite confused when the Reds just pulled guns out of their arses, because I didn't realise it was that time period.
Yeah, it seems to be sort of 16th century around when, you know, arquebus, you know, gunpowder had been introduced to Japan by European traders.
Hang on, surely it would be Chinese traders, because gunpowder originated in China.
No. Gunpowder originated in China, but the Chinese never figured out how to weaponize it. It was the Europeans
they
who
just
did that.
Fireworks and cool stuff.
They used it
like
for
that.
fireworks, and I think there were ideas of using fireworks as like explosive weapons, but it never saw much widespread use. Firearms, as we know it, were a European invention when they got their hands on gunpowder and did something a little different with it.
They introduced a bit of the old neutron style to it.
Yeah, they're slow. So yeah, they've got. I think they seem to be quite early sort of musket style kind of weapons they're using, but they're clearly effective because they shred a cavalry charge, don't they? Again, as we were saying about technology versus tradition.
Yeah, I was quite impressed by some of the practical effects, but some of them did kind of look a bit comical. Like there was one shot of a guy sitting in the battlefield with the most obvious fake arm I've ever seen, and he's like, "Oh, I've lost my arm."
I know the show you're talking about. I think I've seen worse fake arms, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't think I
did like that though.
It's
It's just sort of a quick cutaway to a guy who's because obviously he's like just shocked, and just the image of him holding his own severed limb is very, very striking.
And when the messenger has like 5 arrows like directly in his spine, and he's still like walking, it's like,
yeah, he sort of stumbles and. I mean, he's wearing armor though, wasn't he? So, I mean, he's clearly dying anyway.
That kind of excuses it. I like the bit where the former emperor is like, "Look at me like you hate me. Stop looking at me like we're buds," kind of thing. I thought that was great.
Yeah,
it kind of made me think that the first inkling that he does regret all he's done, and he might have like some sort of PTSD from committing all these atrocious acts.
Element of kind of like he realizes the mistake he made in casting out those who were honest to him, and now he's seeking people who are going to show. He wants them to show how they genuinely feel about him, even if it's hatred, because it's better than being lied to. Which he's obviously learnt the hard way.
Yes, but was it Lady Sue that he was talking to like that?
I think it's Lady Sue, isn't it?
Because I was quite confused on when Lady Sue was first introduced, because I couldn't remember, because she was first mentioned when the evil person was like, "Ooh, go and murder Lady Sue, ooh," and then I was like, "Who the hell's Lady Sue?"
And then you see because she shows up in the that earlier scene where is it? I can't remember who goes to see her now. I think it's the elder son. Yeah, but I think I like that as well, isn't it? Because the first place he looks for, again, it's a nice sort of character establishing thing. Like one of our main things is she's very religious, and when the guy goes to look for her, the first place he goes is the shrine, and then when she's not there, he goes elsewhere. So it's kind of a nice setup of the fact that she's a very pious person if that's where she's going to be found.
But at the same time, at the time, I don't think. I mean, still Buddhism isn't the main thing. It's like I think it's mentioned that Buddhism isn't the favoured religion at the time. It's Shinto, and
it's a fusion of the two. Yeah.
He pulls her up on that. I seem to remember.
I mean, at that point in, I think, Japan, the Japanese religion was a syncretized fusion of Buddhism and Shinto. They kind of practiced both simultaneously and worshipped deities from both. Because obviously they've got the Buddha himself, obviously, but there's the fox story is obviously very clearly
fox,
that's clearly from Japanese mythology.
Later showed up in Pokemon.
I mean, Eastern religion is sort of complicated and works differently to ours, historically. I don't think they didn't really have the same kind of concept of like exclusive religious traditions where you could only worship one god or set of gods. It's a lot more fluid, so you get that kind of fusion. It's interesting stuff.
I mean, I don't know enough about like Japanese history to.
It's worth reading about, especially this period, the Sengoku Jidai.
I know Rimlock. He did a essay for our English speaking about Japanese history, which I heard was quite good. I can't remember.
You're covering
what
like the whole thing.
English speaking on.
I did mine on the Byzantine Empire.
Oh, I did mine close to that. I did mine on the history of the Balkans, which was messy, as is the Balkans most of the time.
Someone else who did history of the Balkans, wasn't it?
There was another person who did it. I suppose it's a topic that has quite a bit of it.
I remember you told me about the guy who covered the whole thing.
No, I think that was me.
No, I distinctly remember you telling me the story and it describing it as another person.
Or sometimes, I don't know, I might have just accidentally drifted into third person or something.
I think you named him, if I recall.
Oh.
Either way, Balkan history is messy and complicated, so...
Everything happens in the Balkans, it is the fun zone.
Yep, it's basically a clusterfuck.
Yeah. But it has some brilliant culture.
When they're not trying to murder each other, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give them credit, it's interesting though.
Yes. It's where...
But anyway, we... Sorry, go
on. Sorry. Anyway, let's get back onto Ran.
I was about to say, we strayed a bit off topic here. Do you have anything else to say, or shall we think of scores?
I'll consult my notes. Oh, I felt quite satisfied when the Emperor slapped the fool. Because at that point, I was really not liking the fool, and I was like, hell yeah. But then later on, when the fool's crying on the mountainside, I felt really bad, and I was like, oh, I'm so mean. Yeah. I shouldn't have felt good about that. I'm so horrible.
Yeah, he does end up a sympathetic character.
Do you have any more notes?
I think I've said everything I have to say.
Okay. Do we want to rate this out of 10?
Ooh, yeah. Do you want to go first, or shall I?
I think you should go first.
I am going to give this one... 9.5 out of 10. I really love this movie. I loved it the first time. I loved it even more the second time. The story is great. The themes are great. Visually, it looks amazing. The design, the actors, it nails pretty much everything.
I was going to give it Oh, carry on.
The only criticism I would have is that the slow pace means it does get a little tiring to watch sometimes. So yeah, 9.5 out of 10.
That's pretty much what I was going to give it for pretty much the same reasons. I was going to give it a 9.4 because it's 2.5 hours long, and I had to take like 2 breaks in the middle of it.
I had to take a couple breaks. It is a damn long movie. I mean, yeah, I mean, either one of my favorite movies ever is Apocalypse Now, and my preferred cut of that is like 2 hours and 3/4. And even when it's really good, it still does get tiring to just watch a movie for that long.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of Apocalypse Now when I was watching this because it's kind of like a historical things with quite vibrant colours as well, and brilliant action scenes. Except there isn't helicopters donated from the Filipino government in the midst of a civil war.
Different kind of action, samurai action.
Yeah.
Both have a lot to say about war as well.
Yes.
Though in different ways. But we could talk about that movie for years because it's great.
It's brilliant. Marlon Brando's good, but at the same time, he was terrible to work with on set, and he just wander off halfway through scenes and be like,
he's absolutely
my character
brilliant
would
in the
wander off
movie.
now.
I mean, he's an amazing actor in the movie, but he's an absolute arse to work with. I think he showed up like late, drunk, and seriously overweight. That's why they had to they frame it so that Kurtz appears to be like this really tall, powerful guy, when the actual reality was Marlon Brando was just fat. But he does nail it in the final product, so gotta give him credit. It's like the thing on isn't it Superman 2 where he wouldn't even learn the lines. He read the script.
Oh god. Oh, I mean, that's happened to me a few times when. Yeah, that's happened to me a few times working on stuff.
Oh god.
Unfortunately, I always read the script. Like, did you hear once when he was working on a movie, he ordered in like a plane full of meat when he was like working in the desert? I think it was like Arabian Nights or something like that. And he ordered in the middle of the desert like a plane full of like a banquet and wouldn't like share it or anything, and he just scoffed it himself. Absolute nightmare to work with, and really expensive as well.
Yeah, he cost like millions by the end of his career. But of course, he was also a really fucking good actor, so that's how he was able to get away with it. That's Hollywood for him. But anyway, with moral of the story being that Marlon Brando was kind of an arse. Are we finished then? Do you reckon? We've got our 2 movies done with.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you next. Are we doing it once every week or once every 2 weeks?
Period of time in which we upload it.
I think we could do it once every week because we were able to get this done rather. I mean, it doesn't
maybe
take
once every
too
2
long.
weeks.
Yeah, once every 2 weeks.
In terms of the cumulative time it takes, I'd say 2 weeks is reasonable. Oh, we'll think about it later. We can finish this up now and be
anyway,
done.
I'll see all you lovely people in 2 weeks, I guess. Goodbye from me and goodbye from Michael.
Good night.